Welcome, Nana. Share some of your memories about your early years.
I must have been in the 7th grade, and we didn't have lunch at school. We went to a Catholic school, and we walked home for lunch, which was a good distance, and back again. And then we sat at our desk until it was time for the nun to come in and start our first class in the afternoon. And we'd all be gabbing. And of course, when the nun came in, I just continued on. And the nun said to me one day, "Beatrice, your tongue is as long as Branch Avenue." And Branch Avenue was long. That's what the school was on Branch Avenue. That's one of the funny things. And another, down below the school, there was a mill, worsted and woolen goods. And there were all the dye vats were outside there.
What is that?
Dye vats. They put the...
for dyeing the wool.
The
vats. I understand now.
The vats. They were outside and they were steaming. But there was a brook running through from the hill that separated our schoolyard from the mill.
Okay.
And there was a huge tree on our side, and we had a rope attached to it. The boys did this, but the girls used to do the same thing. They'd swing on it too, and we'd go right across over to the mill, over the brook.
Over the brook?
We were a good distance above it because there's a big hill.
Yeah.
But
and then could you get off on the side of the mill, off of the rope?
No.
Or you were just swinging?
I don't remember. No, we swang over there, but we didn't land. There was something for us to put our foot on to push us back.
Push
again.
back.
But
wow.
That was
and the
fun.
nuns let you do that?
They didn't know we were doing it. We would not have gotten away with it.
Oh my.
We did because nobody said anything about it. That was fun.
Right.
And then right next door to our school was a funeral parlor.
Oh.
And there was usually some person laid out there. And we were told that if we went in carefully, everybody needs prayer.
Oh.
And if we were quiet and behaved ourselves, we could kneel down, say a prayer for the deceased, and come out. And so if there was someone there in the funeral home, that's what we did before we went into school.
In the morning on the way into
noontime.
Class, or at noontime before you came back from lunch?
Yeah, on the way back from lunch, yeah.
So we have this picture that you've kept all these years.
Yeah, well, that was her 50th anniversary.
And who is she?
My first grade teacher, Sister Theophane. It was lovely to see. That was from Venus de Milo, out in Massachusetts.
What is that? It's
a restaurant.
Okay.
Out in Massachusetts. Very popular even today. Yeah, for Italian food scene.
She was your first grade teacher. Why did you keep this? What was so important about her?
She was our first impression in school, and she was a lovely person. And this was the only one who had been in the profession for so long. And so her 50th anniversary was quite an event.
So you went?
We all went to it, yeah.
Your entire first grade class, or many of you?
As many as could. We were still living around. Yeah. It wasn't her first year wasn't my first year.
Oh, I see. So about how old were you when it was her 50th?
Oh, I was probably in my 30s.
Okay.
Probably.
Wow, so she had been teaching for several years.
She had been there for several years, but this was her 50th.
And do you remember anything specific from first grade? Anything from what she meant in first grade to you?
No, she taught us, of course, all our prayers. Of course, I knew the alphabet and everything before I even went in there. And after I was a voracious reader, my mother instilled that.
Before you went to school, even?
Before I went to school, my mother had me reading. And in the first grade, my Sister Theophane gave me as many books as she could. And then she said, "Sadie, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to take her to the library."
Sadie's your mother?
My mother, Sarah.
Okay. Sarah, and her nickname was Sadie.
Sadie, yeah. Okay. That was, she went to school with us. So
sure.
She called us.
Oh, right, they were friends.
Yes, they were friends.
You had told me that before we started.
Yeah.
Boy, yeah, you didn't get away with much then if your mom's friend was your nun.
And then in the third grade, Sister I forget her name. She was lovely. She went to school with my mother also. And I was doing 5th grade math in the 3rd grade. And so
Wow.
Theodosia was the 5th grade. Oh, what was her name? Anyway, she went to call my mother in, and she said, we need to put her ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother said, if the 3rd grade was not here, it would not be necessary. For her, it would not be necessary. She is not going to skip. She needs the 3rd grade.
Oh.
So I probably would not have left school. Would have stuck it out for another year, you know.
Sure.
But I left because my mother needed help. My 2 older sisters had married, and there were 4 of us at home with my father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, my mother wasn't working. She worked an awful lot through my life, so I don't know. The reason was she wasn't working then, but.
So I have your, we pulled some things out of a drawer, and I have your 8th grade graduation, but then you stayed in school past 8th grade. I have your 8th grade diploma, Beatrice Middlebrook. But then, so how long did you stay in school after that?
Well, I went to the 9th grade in public school.
Okay.
I was on Chalkstone Avenue. I went there. Oh, and there were quite a few of us. Nathaniel Green was the name of the school.
Okay.
And quite a few of us from St. Edward's went to the 9th grade there. And I remember my homeroom number was 105.
Oh, do you remember the teacher?
No, it was a male teacher. And I remember them asking questions in social studies. And do you know, they picked on the Catholic school students first.
Oh.
To see how much they knew.
Oh, to make sure you had the right education?
Of course. And we made ourselves proud.
Mm-hmm.
The whole bunch of us. Because we had a good education. When you went to the Sisters of Mercy, if you had them teaching you, you had a good education. They have stories about how merciless they were.
Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah, they had their pointer. And they were always hitting somebody on the head or the hand or something else. Not only that, my sister went to a school and she was left-handed.
Oh.
And the nun insisted she had a demon in her.
Oh my.
Yeah, she had to use her right hand, and she was left-handed.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, the nun knocked her right out of her seat one day.
Oh, no.
Because she couldn't write with her right hand.
No.
She was left-handed.
Do you know which hand she uses now?
She's dead now, but she used her left hand all the time.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she was left-handed.
Oh, so the pointer did not work.
It wasn't the pointer.
Oh my.
I couldn't believe that. But I never had anything like that, you know?
Sure.
If you went into the cloakroom for your coat, you stood there gabbing too long, the pointer would come over and you'd be
tapped on the head.
Tapped on the head to, get going. Someone else wants to get their coat. So, but other than that, it wasn't that bad. But you hear an awful lot of horror stories about the nuns.
Well, if she was knocked out of her seat over a
well, that
left
was an
hand.
older one, yeah.
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 So 9th grade, you finish 9th grade then?
Oh yeah.
And what did you get to go into 10th grade?
I went to Hope High School, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I played basketball after school. And I walked, a good long walk. We had bus tickets, but I only used them 2 cents a ride. I had to save them for a rainy day.
Sure.
Because if you got, you paid 10 cents, you got 5 of them, those had to go away.
Save them up, yeah.
You couldn't use them. And Hope High was a good distance away, but I walked it down and back every day. And then in March, that's when I decided that, I'd better get out and get a job. And there were no jobs. You had to be experienced. Jewelry was about what you would get into if you had no experience. But even they wanted experienced help, so...
So how did you go about getting a job, Nana?
Well, I got a job in a um, linen and towel. Linen and towel, what did they call it? Linen and towel. Anyway, that's where they washed. They even took laundry from people's houses.
Okay.
And washed and put what they could through the mangle, I guess. I was never ironing. I was on a mangle, but not on an iron.
What is a mangle?
A mangle is an iron. It's a huge machine, and you put an edge of a sheet in it, and it would roll it through an iron.
Oh, okay.
That's
so this was after it had been washed, then this is to straighten it out
through,
and get it ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at first it was sorting. I didn't like that. Well, within a short time I was put on the mangle. I got a job raise. It was 30 cents an hour.
That's impressive
after,
then. Yes.
Then it went up to 32 cents an hour. We got a raise. And shortly after that, my mother got me into the mill.
Okay. Was she working there as well?
No, she was taking home, they call them cuts. It's quite involved if you don't know anything about it, but cuts of the woolen and worsted materials. It's a bolt of cloth.
Okay.
Rolled up. It's huge. It's 3 feet wide, and it could be 110 yards long.
Wow.
And that's what we worked on. We took out the imperfections.
Okay. So you would cut them, and then they would get put back together without the imperfections? Is that?
Then they would be finished.
Oh, I see.
These were not finished.
Okay.
Until we had we had mispicks. That was a thread out in the width of the cloth. Mispick. What was a warp?
Okay.
Was in the let me call it up and down.
The grain of the material?
Yeah, but the direction.
Oh, I see. The length?
Yeah. And we had to put those in and then take out slubs. That was a bit of lint that got all mangled up in a great big ball, a hot ball, and you had to pick at that and get those out. And what else? And then take another thread. If 2 threads got wound in the same spot, you had to take one of them out and then scrape it to get all the threads together. And then you had to, if there was a float, you had to fill that in. That's where it's very
sounds very detailed.
Very detailed, and I was on, that's when I started wearing glasses.
Oh.
I was on piecework, but I did very well on piecework. Now, when I worked in the laundry, I made $13 or $14 a week.
Wow.
And when I went on piecework in the mill, I was making $68, $72 a week.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That is much better.
Oh yes, yes.
Wow.
And then I stayed there for 4 years until I went into the Women's Army. You had to be 20 years old to enlist, and I had always wanted to be a nurse. So I thought, well, my folks couldn't pay for my education, so the war was going on, so why not go into the Army? And
so by now it's 1945. You'd grown up in the Depression. You knew there was a war going on.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you didn't know at the time that the war was coming to an end.
No.
Because well, you know.
Yeah.
So you enlisted in 1945, and where did that take you? What was the Army?
That took me to Iowa in basic training.
So Rhode Island to Iowa.
Yeah, we went.
Was that a shock?
We went. Well, going down, it was a shock. It was
I remember you telling me that the war ending really changed the direction you thought you were heading.
Well, the war ended, and in August, and I was still in basic training, and the day after the war ended, they closed the hospital schools.
So you had been enrolled in a hospital school as part of the Women's Army Corps?
No, I had gone in
okay.
To go into the hospital.
Okay.
But there was no guarantee that I would.
Sure.
I didn't know that at the time.
Oh.
So
So what did they have you do while you were enlisted?
Well, they sent me to secretarial school,
Oh,
and that's what I ended up.
Okay.
And when I finished with that, we were all sent out to different bases, and I was sent to Cape Cod,
oh,
Falmouth, Mass,
back home almost.
practically because the war was over, and they intended that a good many of us would be discharged,
Mm-hmm.
and so they sent us to the closest place so that when it came time for us to go home,
Mm-hmm.
it would cost them less money.
Sure.
So,
they intentionally sent you to Cape Cod. It had nothing to do with if they needed you there or not.
but they didn't. I was needed there.
Oh.
I relieved a man who was secretary to this colonel,
Mm-hmm.
and he went home, and I took his place.
Wow.
So,
So what did that involve? What kind of work did you do?
That was typing up military letters, orders to go here, there, and everywhere.
Did you have top security clearance or anything fun like that?
I don't remember anything like that, no.
No.
But when I had time, I went down to the post office, which was right next door, and helped them sort mail.
Oh.
That was fun. And then in my barracks, I was bivouacked in a barracks that had nurses.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. Those nurses had just come from overseas.
Oh.
And
Stories.
yeah, stories. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they got up in the morning, cigarettes were on the windowsills. Smoke right away.
Mm-hmm.
You had to wake them up because when roll call came, they didn't want to get out of bed.
Just the nurses.
The nurses, yeah. And my time off, I would iron their uniforms for them, so they were happy about that.
Was that just something generous that you did because they had
Yeah.
served?
No, because
Just a nice person.
I had something to do,
Sure.
you know. Like now, I'm always looking for something to do.
I know. Yes, as we're talking, Nana is shuffling cards. Well, not shuffling them because that would make a lot of noise, but
I'm
yes. And
just doodling.
yes.
But we had a pot-bellied stove in our barracks. That's what we kept warm with. And one weekend, a woman with us, about my age, went home to Maine. And when she came back, she had some deer meat.
Oh.
And we had an older woman, 35 years old, in our barracks.
Older. I'm 43. What does that make me? Ancient?
We were 20.
Okay. Sorry. 35-year-old woman came back.
No, this 20-year-old came back with the veal.
Gotcha.
The deer meat.
Dear meat.
And the 35-year-old woman had a frying pan, and on the top of that pot-bellied stove, we cooked our meat.
Delicious.
Delicious, was good, yeah. Because that was in the winter time, you know, deer season.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just little things I think of every once in a while, you know.
Yeah.
Being discharged from the Army really changed the direction of your life. Yet again.
Randy. Okay. Your first weekend home. I interrupted you. I apologize.
That's okay. I went with my friends who were single at the time, and we went to Rhodes on the Patuxent to dance, just as we had always done, and they had done it while I was away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was greeted with, "Hey, WAC, how does it feel to have to pay to get into a place?"
Women's Army Corps.
Yeah.
But WAC.
Women's Army Corps, yeah.
Yeah.
And how does it feel to have to pay to get into a place? And that amazed me because in Iowa, we were not well liked because all of their men had gone away, and the few that were left, we were competition.
Not the cream of the crop, huh?
No, but we were competition
Sure.
for what was left then. So we were not very well liked. And that happened a good deal around the country and about all the women's services. But then I ignored him because I was in uniform. I wasn't in civilian clothes.
You hadn't been discharged at this point.
No.
You were still working. Okay.
This was in October. And so we went in, and I was asked to dance. Got insulted and walked off on him.
I would have loved to have watched that.
And I just didn't say anything, which is unusual for me. I just looked at him and said, "Oh, yeah," and I walked away. And sitting there after the second time that happened, and I'm sulking and watching everybody dance, and I get a tap on the shoulder. I looked up, and here's this man in an Air Force uniform. "May I have this dance?" And I said, "What do I have to lose? I could always walk off on him too."
Right? You'd already done it once.
Yeah, I married that man.
Yes.
Eventually.
And you were married for 50?
Almost 52 years when
Yes.
he died,
Yes.
20 years ago. Yeah, it'll be 72 years in February.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Even once you married and had children, you pursued employment.
Grandpa was home to take care of the children, and
So you worked in a jewelry shop
I
and
worked it from 6 to 10.
okay, in the evenings.
When he came home from working all day. If there were no jobs for him, I would have a 6 to 10 job. We had to have a second job. There
Right.
had to be. And
We had 6 children.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was no sense in going to work if I had to pay a babysitter.
Right.
So I waited until he came. And then I got a job waitressing. And I could do that on, I did that on Friday night at a restaurant in town. And then on Saturday morning at a banquet hall where they had weddings. I would get up early and I'd be there. That's when my husband could be home to take care of the children. So I didn't work in a factory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what point did you think to yourself, and maybe it was a number of different times, but at what point did you say, I left school, I left high school?
Oh, I always intended to go back.
Okay.
I always intended to go back. I didn't realize it would be so long.
Sure.
But I love school. I didn't want to leave it. And I always had this longing for learning. And my love for reading kept on. And I did a lot of that too. I'd even read the advertisements on the bus.
Yeah.
I was,
Just hungering for those words.
Yeah.
So even though you hadn't finished school, you sort of were constantly doing lifelong learning type things, reading.
Oh, yes. Yeah. School of Hard Knocks.
Right. Well, and then your children were in school.
Yes, they were.
And so did you have a role in helping them at home with homework?
Oh, we all did. Yeah, we did. You know, when I was home in Catholic school, at nighttime, right after supper, we would sit down and my father would walk. There's 6 of us too. My father would walk around. We had to get our homework done. He'd make sure, and he'd help us too.
So he would just hover and help.
Yeah, and he would
Hover and help.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yes.
And so we did that too, Tony and I helped. And
so then at what point, because you had to walk into a school at some point, what was it that pushed you into that?
Vincent and Mona had gotten married. Let me see, it was in June. And then we started making plans for Tony's wedding, which was going to be in November.
So you would have been in
And
your
then
middle 50s at this point.
Yes,
Right.
I found out that there was a school. It's not far from here. It's off Broad Street over there. I don't remember the name of it. If somebody mentioned it, I'd probably recognize it. But it was an elementary school, and during the day, which we didn't have at nighttime, we didn't have that choice when I left school.
Okay.
To have
To be able to go back and be there in the
to,
evenings.
Would
You have done that? Do you think that
I
if
would
they
have if we had the opportunity.
could have worked during the day and go to school at night?
Yeah, but we didn't have the opportunity then. Now they do have.
Yeah.
But
So
I went and enrolled, and there was another woman who lived not too far from me, and I asked her, told her I was going over. She didn't drive, so I said, if you want, I knew she hadn't finished. I said, if you want to come with me, I'll be glad to pick you up every morning and bring you. And she didn't last too long.
Oh.
But
was it nice to have somebody else go with you for a little bit, or would that have not mattered?
It was to begin with because it was something new. It was experience, and so that was all right. But when I got there and was in the class and everything, I hated it.
Oh.
Oh, I hated it with a vengeance.
What did you hate?
Just sitting there and waiting because she came around to see if you needed any help. And to begin with, we did need help because it was all new to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there was just something about it. And I said, that's odd because I loved school before. How come I don't like this?
Mm.
And
well, it was different now, wasn't it?
Different.
I mean, when you're doing your graduate equivalency, you know, it's not the same as sitting in a class and learning day to day, right?
No, she wasn't at the front of the class. She was doing it individually.
Right. And so did you have a packet of work that you had to go through, or how did they give you the work?
We had books, and I don't remember exactly. Mm-hmm. But
well, remember, this is now coming up on 40 years ago that we're talking about, right?
37 to be
exact. Right. Yes, math mind. I like to approximate, you like to be exact.
Yeah. As I was told the other day, you are positive. That's what makes you so special. You are a realist, and you are positive.
We're just going to take that as a compliment.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. So
No, that's okay.
She would come around and
to see if you needed any help. But I had always been very good in English, spelling, math. My math teacher at Hope, when I had to leave, he was very upset as he saw potential there.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And my dad was good in math too. My dad was the only one who could read the blueprints when the machines came over from England.
Okay.
To make the wool material.
Right.
Wool and worsted material in the mills. He was the only one of all those people, even the supers and everything. They couldn't even read them. And here he was, a carpenter. Mm. He should have been given a better job than that.
Yeah.
But he was a good carpenter. Anyway, so he had a math mind, and there was a table upstairs. He went to the School of Design.
Wow.
Before he married my mother. Yeah, and he was in an orphanage. He was brought up in an orphanage. He and 5 sisters were taken away from their mother. She took to drink when her husband left her with all the children. And
that's so long ago.
Yeah, she took to drink. Yeah, she couldn't stand it. And the children were taken and put in an orphanage.
This would have been in the early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, because my mother was born in 1897. My father was a couple of years younger, so it's probably 1899.
Wow.
1900, yeah. And so when he got out, when he was 18, he had to get out of the orphanage. He had to make his own way.
Oh, how scary.
And he made his own way down to the School of Design. Imagine that.
Wow.
He never told us about it, but I imagine he had somebody pushing him.
Mm-hmm. So, it'd be interesting to know who that person was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we never talked to him. We never asked about it.
Right.
Know? So.
Nobody stuck a microphone in someone's face at that point, right?
No, that's for sure.
Yeah. So let's go back to getting the diploma. I have it here.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wonder what, it was hard. It wasn't something you enjoyed doing, right? But I wonder, how did it feel when the letter showed up? So you finished before graduation.
I finished before Christmas.
Yes.
And the others all finished in May.
Yeah, and we have that letter here, December 6th, 1979, and they wanted to let you know that, and then it says the actual diploma will be forwarded to you, and then on the diploma it says June 12th, 1980, is when they waited 6 months.
Well, that's when they graduated.
Right. Did you go to the graduation?
No, I didn't.
No. Because, well, you had a wedding to attend that month, right?
No.
One of your daughters got married that year?
No. Tony got married in November.
Oh.
And then Nathan was born in June.
Okay.
Yeah. Anne came down. She was in college in New Hampshire. Yeah, at the time. And she came down and gave me a crash course because I was taking my test as I asked to take them.
The
wanted
different
me,
tests for the GED. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted me to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go into the library and take it by myself.
Wow.
And I knew the algebra test was coming up. And all I remembered was pi equals, and I don't even remember what it equals. And
just remember March 14th, 3.14. Pi Day. We serve kids pie now in high school to help them remember.
Oh, yeah?
Isn't that fun?
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. It was Pi Day here at lunch. But it's the wrong, well, you know, we had lunch, we had pie. 14th, yeah.
But anyway, it comes to the algebra, and I walked in, and Ann came down and gave me a crash course.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Mom, if you can't think of an answer, guess.
Oh,
Take
wow.
a guess at that. So I went in, very brave, of course. Teacher said, please wait, B, don't take it now.
Mm-hmm.
Please wait a while, you know, learn more about it. Now or never. So she said, okay. She got all my papers together and brought them into the librarian, sat me down. Good luck. I'll see you later. So after I finished the test, I went outside for a cigarette, and she came out about half an hour later, and she has this grim look on her face. I told you to wait. And I said, so big deal, I can always take it over again.
Yeah.
I said, look, it was 6 months before graduation. I can do,
right.
You know.
Lots of time.
Sure. And then she burst into a great big grin.
Oh.
You aced it.
Of course.
I said, I guessed an awful lot. I guessed right.
That's kind of good advice for life, isn't it?
It's good advice, yeah, because when did I ever use algebra again?
Oh, don't tell the kids that.
They're going to find out. I mean, they found out already. These kids are a lot smarter than than we were at that age. Boy, oh boy, they run rings around us.
But I think the nugget of truth in that is really, you were ready to do it.
Yeah.
And you didn't think that you could really tolerate much more getting ready. You just wanted to get it done.
I didn't like going in there every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had all these young people, 16 and 17, who had quit school, and they didn't want to continue their work.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to continue on. They wanted to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And, do you want to wait until you're 55 to get your high school diploma? I said, I would never have waited this long if I had the choice. I said, and you definitely do not have the choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get your high school diploma and then go on to something better.
Right.
But
do you think that, so you were a fairly ambitious person.
Always.
I'm just wondering, do you think that there would have been a different, like, would things have been different younger for you? Would you have pursued?
If I had stayed in
Yeah, if you had
school,
finished school at the age that we traditionally finished,
yeah.
would you have had opportunities? You know, it's not like it is now where women go to college, pretty much it's a given.
Well, see, it wouldn't have been after. It would still be during the war, so I don't think so.
No.
I would have to wait until after the war.
Mm-hmm.
I probably could have been a Rosie the Riveter.
Right, right.
During the war, my mother-in-law was.
Yeah.
So right down there at the shipyard in Rhode Island.
During World War II.
World War II, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, your family was very invested in, I mean, your extended family, you're married into family, were very invested in supporting.
And the whole, everyone in who I knew of, everyone I came in contact with, they were also interested in their country, and so celebrating what they could do for it.
Sure.
You know, and what did I want to say? We were patriotic.
Sure.
Very patriotic. You didn't.
Mm-hmm. And so everything was related to supporting the effort to.
That's right. So.
And we were, and World War II wasn't about expanding America. It was about stopping a tyrant.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting.
If you had been given the opportunity to do school and work, would you have done that?
You can do both, because you can have a part-time job and go to school at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Many children do that. Even college students have a couple of jobs.
Right.
They don't even take out loans, which they shouldn't do. You don't want to be in debt when you graduate.
Right.
And they should, how do you say it when you want to earn the money along the way? And I probably would have done that if it was any other time. And nowadays they have the chance to do that. And learning and schooling is still a privilege and also a necessity. But it's up to the person themselves, and they should think enough of themselves that they would enough self-pride that they would want to get ahead.
Yeah.
And
so if somebody is listening to this and they're in a situation where maybe they have to be helping their family financially and have to think about leaving school, you would suggest that they seek out people to help them be able to do both work and do school.
There seems to be a way to do it. There's not just like sleep, get up and go to school, go back home. And we had no schooling at night, so nowadays they have schooling at night. And so they could either go, it may take them a little longer.
Right.
But at least they're working toward a goal.
Right.
And then they're not stagnant at a standstill where they're hopeless. Because there is hope if they just look for it.
Right. Were there people along the way that you would look to and say, this person gave me kind of some of that hope, or was that something that was internal for you?
No, it was up to me to make my way. From what I can see, and most young people at that time, it was up to them to make their way. There wasn't all this help that you get nowadays. But I don't know if it's good. It's up to the individual, I guess. But no one should drop out of school.
Well, listeners, you might have thought that was the end of my interview with my Nana. However, I went back the next day because there was just one more story that I needed for you to hear.
Okay, so Nana, yesterday when I interviewed you, I forgot to ask you about my favorite story. You said that you love school. But I also remember there was a day that you decided it was okay to stay home. Tell me about that.
It was getting near the end of winter, and I loved ice skating. And I heard on the weather report that we were going to have a melting the following day. And all I could think of was, oh no, the ice is going to melt. And I'm going to be in school. So the next morning, I didn't think much about it. But the next morning when my mother called me, get up and get ready for school, I didn't feel well all of a sudden.
Came down with something, huh?
And my mother didn't question it, and she just made sure that I was all right. She didn't question it because she knew I liked schools. She took me at my word and said, I have to go out shopping, but I will be back shopping. And I said, that's okay. I'll be all right. After she left, I got up, had my breakfast, took my skates, slung them over my shoulder, and went for a walk up to Geneva Pond. Almost into North Providence, the end of Providence, where was a beautiful pond, just coated with ice. And I put my skates on, and all by myself, I spent maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours there. Oh, lovely. And walked back home again and walked in the door, fully aware my mother would be there. And she said, oh, feel better all of a sudden. And I said, I couldn't resist it. I heard that it was going to melt today and had to have my last time on the ponds. It was worth it. I didn't get punished or anything because how many days had I been out?
Right. So how old were you at this point?
Must have been about 15.
15. So old enough to know better,
Oh, yeah.
but also old enough that your mother could sort of trust that it didn't happen very often.
It never happened before.
Did you used to go to school sick? If you didn't
We
feel
were
well?
really sick. We were really sick.
Mm.
And the childhood diseases we had, but we had early to bed and early to rise. We had plenty of good food. And so we were more healthy than.
Well, and transportation, you did a lot of your own walking.
We walked everywhere. My father didn't have a car. We couldn't afford it. So we walked everywhere. Almost one of the neighbors picked us up.
Thanks, Nana.
The content of Blazing the Trail is produced by Cross Lake Community High School, an online hybrid school based in Cross Lake, Minnesota, but with students from all over the state of Minnesota, as well as tuition-based students from all over the United States. If you love Blazing the Trail,